Gaur Premanande. Om Jnanatimarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanhebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I have the opportunity to speak something about my spiritual master, who by good fortune, I had the good fortune to be initiated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So I joined the Krishna consciousness movement in London. I'm from the UK, and I was working in London, and I had the opportunity to purchase a Krishna book one day. Not from a devotee though, from a store. It was a Saturday, and I was wandering, and I came into this shop, and I saw this beautiful silver book with this wonderful color picture on the front of a couple embracing. Later on I found out this was Radha and Krishna. I didn't know anything. I did not recognize that this is Krishna, but I'd heard something about Krishna because, well, the devotees had come to the UK, and when they came to the UK, they were very enterprising people, and you could understand, you know, they had special talents. They were really incredible personalities, the three couples. They were just amazing people, and that's why they got some amazing results. And when they first came to the UK, they got an article printed in a prominent English Sunday newspaper. And there was a picture, you know, the devotees, they were so intelligent. They had a picture taken of them coming off the airplane, the three couples with the young baby. Shamsundar and Malati had the little baby girl, Saraswati. And they came dressed as devotees. They came to England dressed as devotees. And they had that picture taken of them coming off the airplane. And that picture was published in the English newspaper. I was at the university at that time and studying, and I saw the article and I read it. And it was very nice. It was explaining how the Hare Krishna chant had come to England. Of course, they managed to meet George Harrison. Well, it was really the enterprise of Shamsundar Prabhu that he was such an enterprising individual that he could make friends with such prominent people. George Harrison was like a very big man in the world, and Shamsundar could become his friend, and they would sit and talk to each other for a long time. You know, George, as we would call him as devotees, you know, let's call him a George, he was conscious of his position, that he was world famous. And I remember he came to the temple one time in England, It was our old temple, number 7 Buri place. It was a rented house. It was the first temple, the first center in the UK. And he came there one afternoon, and devotees were talking to him, but he was always conscious who's there, who's watching, who's looking. He was conscious of being prominent in society. But he had the experience. One day he was walking in the street with Shyam Sundar. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu was dressed as a devotee with a shaved head and a shikha. And he was walking with George Harrison. And George Harrison saw more people were looking at Shyam Sundar than were looking at him. Usually he would think everybody's looking at me. But when he was with Shyam Sundar, he saw more people were looking at Shyam Sundar than were looking at him. And so that made an impression on him. The devotees came to London and they were very enterprising. For almost 2 years they had no place and they didn't have much money either. They came with very less money. Somehow they just managed to get money here and there. Shyam Sundar could do things like renovate people's homes and rebuild the kitchens or put in a new bathroom for them. He could do things like that. He could restore buildings. And he did that when we got to Buri Place Temple. He brought wood, he brought this redwood timber with him all the way from California. When they came to England, he brought this wood with him. Could you imagine? You want to bring wood, big lumps of wood. He brought it to England and he used it to make the interior of the Buri Place Temple. And he made the whole place, it was like a Noah's Ark. In Christianity, we have the Noah's Ark. At the time of the devastation, there's a flood, and Noah has an ark, it's a boat, and everyone gets on the boat, and it's kind of like Satyavrat and the Matsya Avatar. When there was a devastation, Satyavrat brought the sages and they got on the boat, and Matsya appeared and pulled the boat across the ocean of devastation. So Shyam Sundar made the interior of the Buri Place Temple. It was all this red wood which he'd brought from California, and the whole place, it just looked like Noah's Ark. It was really bizarre, but it was really mystical. I'd remember walking into the temple for the very first time, and you could feel the atmosphere. It was just electric. It was just a wonderful atmosphere in this little rented house in the center of London. Only a few minutes away from the British Museum, not very far away from Oxford Circus. It was really in the heart of London. And we were living there. It had about 6 floors. There was a basement, which was where we served prasadam. And there was the ground floor was the temple room. And then above the temple room, the first floor was Prabhupada's room. And then above that was another floor which was for the Matajis. And then above that, the Prabhus stayed. So like this, we were occupying the whole building. And when I became a devotee, there were about 18 people living there. There were 2 ladies, and the rest were all young men. There was one Indian that was, later on he became Subhag Swami. When I joined, he had not yet received his initiation, but he was living there in the ashram with the devotees. I remember when I went to the temple and I saw him there, I thought, oh, this is unusual. Even an Indian is joining this. Of course, practically now our movement is majority of Indians, you know. But in those days, movement was new and we were all Westerners. But Subhag had joined. His parents had sent him to England to get an education because they saw when he was in Calcutta, his native home was Calcutta. His parents were worried that, oh, he's always going to temples and he's associating with all kinds of sadhus. We'll send him to England and he can get education and forget about all these things. But when he got to England, the people he met were the devotees. And he very quickly moved into the temple and became a full-time devotee. And went on, now of course, he's got many thousands of disciples and he travels around the world. He's over 80 years old. He's a wonderful devotee. So I had the good fortune, we all took initiation together when Prabhupada came. We were about 18 devotees, 2 ladies, one was French and one was American. There were no British ladies, first of all. The one lady had come from France. She was supposed to go to India. Later on, what happened, Prabhupada came to London and he asked her to go to Russia and marry a Russian. And she did it. She married the first Russian devotee. Prabhupada had gone to Russia and he'd met the young Russian man who was very interested in Krishna consciousness. And so Prabhupada thought it would be good for him if he could have a nice devotee wife. So when Prabhupada came to London, there was this one French lady there. She was the pujari. She was the only one second initiated. And she was serving the deities, Radha, Landan, Ishwara. And we had also Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra also. So we were the only temple with big size Radha Krishna deities in the world at that time. London was the first temple to have big size deities. And what had happened, the people who had come from America, the 3 couples, they'd come to London. And of course they'd met with George Harrison and everything, and they got the building, the rented building in London. And then Prabhupada came, and Prabhupada said, all right, now come to India with me. I want you to come with me to India and we will begin our world Sankirtan movement. And although they had made such wonderful people, devotees like George Harrison, and they had made an impact on the whole world with their recording of the Hare Krishna mantra, they left everything and went with Prabhupada to India. They were so attached to Prabhupada. Prabhupada had given them that mission to go to England, and then Prabhupada came and saw that they had established the society in England. They said, now you come with me, we'll go to India. We will begin the world Sankirtan preaching. And so the devotees thought, yes. They'd been in England long enough. They were happy to go with Prabhupada, right? They just wanted to follow Prabhupada. They would go anywhere on Prabhupada's orders. And so that was the mood in those days, you see. Devotees were completely dedicated to Prabhupada. Whatever Prabhupada wants, we would do it. The girl, a French lady, she went to Russia and she got married to that first Russian devotee, 1972 or 73. You know, devotees were, and you don't, what were, Russia, of course, at that time it was locked down, it was communist, it was very difficult. But devotees, this is pioneering, this is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it was very exciting, all of these things, you see. It was devotees, as young people growing up in the West, we wanted that kind of excitement, and Prabhupada gave us that opportunity. He gave us that adventure to go and do something for Lord Krishna and establish Lord Chaitanya's movement around the world. And so devotees were doing these things. I came in the temple in London, there was only the one French girl there. She was the only one second initiated. The temple president, at first it was Mukunda Goswami. Well, Mukunda, he wasn't Goswami at that time, but then he went back to America and the president became an 18-year-old brahmachari. He became the temple president of the only temple in London, you see. He was only 18. He could hardly read or write. You know, he didn't have hardly any education, but he had great enthusiasm and dedication, and he loved to do Sankirtan, and we would go out and chant and dance every day. Our whole program was Sankirtan. You know, we were all just young people, and how to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. We didn't know really what to do, but we would go out on Sankirtan, and we would go every day, winter or summer, hail, snow, rain, whatever the weather was like, we would be out there and chanting and dancing. And that went on for years, and it became so much a part of London that when they asked people, they did a survey from people in London, and they asked them, when you think of London, what do you think about in London? They say, oh, Hare Krishna. They said, wherever we go to London, we always see Hare Krishna dancing and chanting in the streets. So that was the mood. And we have continued that in England. Even today, they still have regular, almost daily Sankirtan. So we would go out and chant and dance, and people would come and chant. They would like to dance with us, come and chant with us. At that time even, there was a musical which was being performed in London, in the theatre in London. The musical was called Hare. And in that musical, they would also sing Hare Krishna. And they were singing Hare Krishna and dancing. And some of the ladies who were in the show, they would come on Sankirtan with us. They would come out and they say, we want to come on Sankirtan with you. And Prabhupada said, they got this chanting of Hare Krishna from our Hare Krishna movement. So he said their chanting was bona fide. And he was very happy that they were chanting Hare Krishna. You know, in India, so many people chant Hare Krishna, and often it's influenced by Mayavadi and all kinds of wrong conceptions. But the Western world, they got Hare Krishna, they got it from Srila Prabhupada and from the Krishna consciousness movement. It was the devotees who brought that Sankirtan movement, and they brought it on the streets everywhere. When you went to USA, everybody in the US, every city, they would have devotees chanting and dancing. And we would be seen distributing books. In the beginning, when I first came to the Krishna consciousness movement, you know, they told me, oh, we distribute books, and they said, we have this Back to Godhead magazine. It was a magazine which had been produced for new people, for people to introduce people to our Krishna consciousness movement. And they told us that just if people give you a donation, then take it, but don't pressure them to give you money, right? So that was initial, that was when I first came to the movement, that they had said like that if you get a donation, it's nice, but we don't force people to give donations. However, after some time, you know, we were giving out books, we were not getting much money. And Prabhupada was concerned. He said, oh, this is not good. He said, if we don't have money, how will we be able to keep printing the books? He said, you have to get something for the book. They have to at least cover the printing cost. So Prabhupada said, any gentleman, they will give 25 cents for our magazine. They must give something. He said, they cannot expect to take our books and not contribute. So then we started to distribute the books and request donations and get something for them. So that went on for some time. We were distributing little books and Back to Godhead magazines. And then some few years later, Srila Prabhupada said, actually, book distribution means big book distribution, not just little magazines. Prabhupada said, we are printing big books, you have to distribute them. If we don't distribute them, how can we print more books? Prabhupada was writing. He was translating the Bhagavatam. He came from India with the first canto in 3 volumes. It was mentioned this morning. Charanjiva Prabhu was giving class about Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying how Prabhupada had brought his edition of the Bhagavatam, which was done with letterpress. In the old days, it was a very slow, very laborious system of printing books. And Prabhupada had to do everything himself. He had nobody helping him. He would write, he would type, he would go to the printers, he would check what the printers had done. And so when the book was printed, there would be quite a few mistakes, a lot of errors. But anyway, Prabhupada brought these books to America. He had printed them in India. He'd sold some of them. He did get orders from different government libraries. But when he got the chance to go to America, he was very sure to bring his books with him. And he had crates, he had 3 crates of the books, 1 crate of each volume. And he had them put on the ship. And before he got off the ship in America, he sold a set of the books to the captain of the ship. And the captain, Captain Pandya, gave him $20 for the 3 books. Prabhupada said that was the only money he had when he first got to America. And he said, $20, he said, that's just a few hours spending money. It doesn't go. So like this, Prabhupada got some money and he brought the books to America, and whenever he did a program, he would go and try to sell the books. He would introduce them to people. And he was regularly writing. He got the 2nd canto. Initially, when he first printed the 2nd canto, it was done 1 volume, 1 chapter at a time. Each book was 1 chapter. And so we had, there's 10 chapters in the second canto, so there were 10 books. And like this was how Prabhupada was publishing the Bhagavatam. We got the second canto, 1 chapter at a time. And then Prabhupada had printed Krishna book, printed the first volume came out, and then the second volume came. I had bought the first volume. Later, after I joined the movement, then the second volume came. So these Krishna books, they were printed in Japan. From Dainapan, they were printed in Japan. And on the inside of the book, it said, "Not for sale in India." Yeah. And so whenever we had these books in India, whenever people saw the book and they saw how it said, "Not for sale in India," they said, "I want that book." Because that was the mentality in India at that time. They wanted whatever was in the West. So we had this Krishna book and people wanted it. And so it was very nice to distribute Krishna books to people. And Prabhupada, initially when devotees first came in India, we were doing Sankirtan, and we'd go on the street just like we did in the West. We would go out on the street and try to distribute books. So when they came to India, at first they did Sankirtan, and they didn't have really any books in India. Initially, Prabhupada came there to India 1970 and then 71. There were no books. Even, I remember I came to India in 1975, and you know, most of you guys were not even born. But I was there in 1975 in Calcutta, and we were trying to preach and distribute books. And I remember Desaru Swami he had not yet moved in the temple. He was coming, visiting the temple. He was from Calcutta. So he started coming to our Calcutta temple, and the temple president was a devotee called Abhirama Prabhu, and he was cultivating him, speaking with him, encouraging him, and he wanted to read a book. He'd been to other different gurus and ashrams, and he wanted to know more about Krishna consciousness. So he said, "Can I have a book to read?" Problem was, there were no books. We didn't have any book. 1977, practically there were no books. Everything had, whatever books we had, we brought them from the West. When we came on the flight, we'd bring as many books as we could carry, and they would be immediately absorbed, taken by the devotees, because they didn't have any books there. So we had Bhakti Charu is there, and he wants to read a book. What to give him? We only had one Bhagavad Gita, and we were using it to have class every night. So they wanted to give him the Bhagavad Gita, but I protested. I said, "No, come on." I said, "We can't give him that. We won't be able to have class if we don't have a book. It's the only book. It's the only Bhagavad Gita we have." I said, "Give him this book, Nectar of Devotion." So they said, "Okay, all right, we'll keep the Bhagavad Gita here." And we gave him the Nectar of Devotion. And he took that book and he read it cover to cover. And he fell in love with it. And he thought it was the most wonderful book. And it brought him to Krishna consciousness. And later on, he helped to translate that book to Bengali and see it published in Bengali language. So anyway, try to understand the situation of our movement in 1970s there. How Prabhupada came to India with the dancing white elephants. You see? Prabhupada had been preaching in India and nobody wanted to join. Prabhupada was asking them, come and join me, come and preach with me. But they didn't want to join. They would say, no, I want to go to Singapore and work in the factory. They would say, no, I want to be engineer. I want to be a sailor and go on the ship. But Prabhupada said, why not come and preach Bhagavad Gita around the world? You're Bengali. Why not preach Bhagavad Gita? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Prativiti achiyat nagar adigram. But they will say, no, no, I want to go to factory in Singapore. What can we do? And so Prabhupada came to the West. He came to the West and he got young people there in the West. And then he brought them back to India because Prabhupada knew the Indian mentality that they like everything from the West. They wanted to be like the, Prabhupada said, the Sab, right? Sab meaning the white man. The white man who, the white people, they came to India and they kind of had big positions, ruling, governing India. So they wanted to be like that. Of course, now the situation is reversed. And just recently, we had the Indian man become the Prime Minister of England. The situation changes. In the past, English people went to India and ruled India. Now Indian people went to America and to England. They're becoming, one is the Vice President in the USA, you have Kamala, and you have this other, and you had this other man, Rishi Sunak, who became Prime Minister in England. So like that, people became very, the situation changes, reversed. Jai Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj ki Jai. Continue? Okay. So, you know, I'm just talking about Srila Prabhupada, my memories of Srila Prabhupada and the early years there in the Krishna consciousness movement. How we had no books in India. In the beginning, there were no books, of course. It took time to get books. But somehow they managed to get some books. They started to print the books. And I remember Kumbh Mela, 1977. Prabhupada went there. Srila Prabhupada was not well. He was sick. But he'd come there to Kumbh Mela. And the devotees had come and they'd managed to print some books. Gopal Krishna Maharaj was in charge of the BBT, and he had managed to print books, and they brought them all to the Kumbh Mela. And the devotees were distributing books very nicely. Kumbh Mela, millions of people come, and they're all looking for some kind of spiritual path. They're looking for something. They're all interested in spirituality. Millions of people. It's the biggest gathering on the planet. You know, Kumbh Mela, only once every 12 years. So 1977, Srila Prabhupada went there. January, it's in the month of Magh. It's cold. Allahabad, Prayagraj is called today. It's very cold, but Prabhupada tolerated. He came there and devotees were there. And Prabhupada told the devotees, don't go until you distribute all the books. They brought they printed thousands of books. They brought them all there, magazines and everything, all kinds of little Hindi magazines, Bengali magazines. We didn't have much books, you know, very little printed in other languages, maybe nothing in Tamil, because we had nothing in South India at that time. So we just had some Hindi, some English, some Bengali. But Prabhupada told the devotee, don't go, don't leave here without distributing all the books. So that was Prabhupada's instruction to us at that time in Kumbh Mela. Prabhupada was always eager to see us preaching and doing Sankirtan. He appreciated the efforts of the senior devotees to organize our movement. When he saw the devotees in Los Angeles all wearing a kind of uniform, you know, the ladies all had the sari, the same color, and the men were all dressed in the same, the same kind of cloth. And Prabhupada thought, oh, this is very nice. He could see that some organization was there. We had our uniform, and the devotees would go out and chant, and they were all dressed, you know, the ladies all in the same color of sari, and the men also with their shaved heads and wearing the dhoti, and so Prabhupada appreciated that, oh, somebody is organizing, somebody is managing nicely. He was always appreciative of the managers of the Krishna consciousness movement. And you can see how Jayapataka Swami Maharaj also got a lot of mercy from Prabhupada, because he was also a very senior manager. He was managing the Mayapur project. Initially he was in the Calcutta temple, but then they got the land at Mayapur. And they got the land at Mayapur, it was just rice fields, there was nothing there. The devotees had to go and stay there, and they had to arrange to get cement. To get cement, it was so difficult. Everything was rationed. You had to get permission from the government to get cement, to get steel, everything was rationed. So the devotees were living there. Tamal Krishna Goswami told us one time, he said, they were building the very first building, which is the Lotus building in Mayapur. Those of you have been, how many of you all been to Mayapur? Many of you all been there, right? Yeah, many. So in Mayapur, you know, there's the Lotus building, there's the Chakra, there's the Gada, there's the Conch. There's so many buildings there. So the Lotus building was the first building. But the devotees were putting up that building, they were building it. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj described how when they first got the steel and they got the cement, and they took a picture of it and they sent the picture to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, what is this? It's just a picture of steel and cement. He said, I want to see the building. I don't want to see steel and cement. Put up the building. So like that, Prabhupada was really pushing. He really wanted nice buildings put up there. And of course, they did very good job. That Lotus building, it's a very nice building, very good there. Big verandas. Prabhupada designed these different things. He said how he wanted the buildings put up. He wanted these big verandas. And he was living there. When he would come to Mayapur, he would stay on the Lotus building. He would enjoy being there. He said also, he said, the mosquitoes in Mayapur have no mercy. So he was aware what's it like in Mayapur. Prabhupada, wherever he would come, he would always come to the Calcutta temple. Before he went out to Mayapur, he would come and see Calcutta, give a class there. We'd have an evening program, people would come to meet him. And the same in Delhi. I remember in Delhi also. In Delhi, we had just a very small house, little rented house, 1975. We were in the place called Bengali Market. Bengali Market, it's in Delhi and in the center pretty much, and we were living there, and we had the deities, Radha Partha Sarati, Prabhupada had named them. And we were about 8 devotees. Again, I think maybe 1 or 2 Indian, the rest were foreigners. We were living in the house there. And Prabhupada would come. Prabhupada would come and visit us, and he would want to meet people. And we would invite the different people to come and meet Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would talk with all the different guests coming. I remember in Delhi, it was very difficult in Delhi. Nobody liked to stay in Delhi. Calcutta is a bit better because Calcutta is Bengal. And Bengali, Bengali sweets, and you get nice prasadam, nice vegetables and things there in Bengal. In Delhi, it's a bit more austere. It's dry and very hot in the summer, very cold in the winter. And you don't get a lot of variety in the at least in those days, in the 1970s, you didn't get much. It was like tinda sabji, you know. If you're from India, you know tinda sabji. Everybody laughing, you know. So every day tinda sabji, oh yeah. So we were living like that in Delhi, and we didn't have a vehicle or anything. We were just living from day to day. We were supporting the temple by life membership programs. And I remember Prabhupada came, and he came to Delhi, he was with us, and he talked. One life member had come, and Prabhupada would always ask them, so what is your business? So this one man said, well, I'm in transportation business. I have my transportation company. So Prabhupada said, oh, transport. He said, I need transport to go to Vrindavan tomorrow. Can you arrange a car for me to go to Vrindavan? And so the man said, oh yeah, no problem. I mean, the temple, we didn't have any cars or anything. We were just, poor people. We would go in autos every day. But Prabhupada was so enterprising. He engaged this man to arrange a car to bring him to Vrindavan the next day. And so Prabhupada was so thoughtful about all of these things, He would always like to engage people, get them to do some service for Krishna. Similarly in Calcutta also, he'd come to Calcutta. He liked to go out to Mayapur and bring people. And whenever he would go out to Mayapur, we would always stop halfway. In those days the road was really bad, a very difficult road. Nowadays, wow, they've got the super highway now, dual carriageway, it's very different. But in the 1970s, it was really a difficult road. And it'd take a lot of time to go out to Mayapur. Prabhupada would leave early in the morning and take breakfast halfway. And there was a mango grove everywhere. Every time on the way out to Mayapur or coming back from Mayapur, Prabhupada would stop at the mango grove. And we would have prasadam, we'd serve Prabhupada prasadam. So I remember one time there was a big fleet of vehicles all going out with Prabhupada to Mayapur. Gargamuni Maharaj had come from Germany with a fleet of vehicles, Mercedes-Benz vehicles from Germany. And he'd brought some brahmacharis also to help preach in India. Because we didn't get many people, we didn't get too many Indian people joining in those days. Now, of course, now temples are all full of Indians, but initially people were, a little suspicious and not very trusting about us. They thought we were all, maybe we were drug addicts or whatever, Even Devanand had made his film about Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, and people were singing it everywhere to the devotees. And so people were not really trusting devotees. They wanted that our movement should be more established. They were looking, but not too many people were joining. So Prabhupada needed people to come from the West. That was how I came to India. I came 1975. Gopal Krishna Prabhu, he had been in New York, and Srila Prabhupada had asked him to come back to India to help to develop the yatra in India, because naturally he's Indian, he can speak Hindi, and he wanted him to take charge of printing the books. So at that time I was in New York, I was in the temple in New York, and Gopal Krishna, he was to go to India. He wanted some people to go, and he asked the temple president, can you give me some men to take to India? So temple president said, you can have 2. I'll give you 2 brahmacharis. So I was one. I got to go with Gopal Krishna Maharaj. He said, you come. He said, because you're British. He said, you can stay. He said, other people, they need visas. But at that time, he said, British people coming to India could stay as long as they liked. So I came to India like that, one-way ticket, and the idea to stay in India. And of course, other people were also there. People like Janani Vas Prabhu and his brother Pankaj Jangari, they had also come from the UK. And there were other English devotees also there in Mayapur. And mostly Prabhupada, he said, difficult for Americans to get visas. There was some tension between Indira Gandhi's government and the American government. And these. Oh, okay. So Indira Gandhi's government was at conflict with the US government, and they said, these people from Hare Krishna, they're CIA, they're agents from the central, the CIA, the secret service, and they've come to spy on India. And so they didn't like to give visas for America, just like they're not giving to China people just now. In the past, they wouldn't give to Americans, you see. And so he said, Prabhupada told the devotees from the UK, he said, you come, you people from the UK, you come, because many people were joining in England. We were getting many people join. And so Prabhupada said, all you young men, you come to India, help us to establish the mission in India. And so I went to India. I came 1975. I was there in Calcutta, and first in Delhi. I was in Delhi, I got jaundice. You come to India, you have to expect you're going to get sick. There were no bottled water. There was nothing like that in 1970s. You drink water, you drink some water, maybe not so clean, and you get sick. So I had jaundice. And then Gopal Krishna Prabhu at that time, he told me, he said, go to Calcutta. He said, you'll get better prasadam there, not just tinda sabji. You'll get some good prasadam in Calcutta. So I came to Calcutta, and very nice atmosphere there, nice devotees. I had good prasadam and a lot of preaching. And we had the opportunity to go out to Mayapur, and sometimes Jaipataka Swami Maharaj would also come to Calcutta regularly. He would be staying in Mayapur, but coming regularly to Calcutta and associating and encouraging and inspiring all of us. So I have to stop now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo.